practices and a high standard of supporting employees. Okay, so as you all know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and the consequences have been quite serious, and I suppose ultimately the consequences on mental health have been quite drastic. The Irish Times in June reported that COVID-19 has severely impacted an already serious crisis with mental health. Isolation, entrapment and lockdown have seen mental health issues soar. A Queen's University in Belfast survey showed that 1 in 3 met the criteria for coronavirus-related anxiety and depression, while 1 in 5 met the criteria for post-traumatic shock. Many of you will have noticed that this impact has been reflected in businesses and our workforce. So I suppose what we're looking at this morning is what can we do to tackle the situation. First of all, I'm going to talk to Carolyn and then I'll talk to Anna. There will be time at the end of the session for a couple of questions after the Q question and answer session. So hi there. Good morning, Carolyn. How are you?
Good morning, Jessica. Good, thank you.
Thanks very much for joining me this morning. I have the questions here, so you'll see me looking to the side.
No problem.
And we'll go through them one by one. So, first of all, what's the difference between mental health and stress in the workplace, and should they be tackled differently?
Well, with the pandemic, with COVID, has kind of changed everything. Mental health, as most of us know, it affects 1 in 4 of us.
Yeah.
The severity, it depends. Most mental health problems, majority can be dealt with. Majority are short term and they can be treated by short-term counselling or the GP. But what's happened now over the last few months, a huge amount of uncertainty in people's lives, and that has fueled a huge amount of anxiety. And if the anxiety isn't tackled properly, that is causing depression. So, and uncertainty is one of the main causes of anxiety. So the not knowing what's happening is causing people a lot of stress. And because they're isolated, a lot of people are working from home, people are out of work, people are unsure of their jobs and everything. So it's having a huge impact. So the difference, mental health and stress, the main difference is the severity and the duration of the symptoms.
Okay.
With stress, it's kind of what a lot of people are going through at the moment. Right. It's when we feel that we've too many demands on us. We feel that, but it's too much, I can't cope. But it can be tackled easily enough. With the stress, it's kind of looking at our demands and seeing where we can reduce them.
Right, okay.
So that's, it can be tackled. The thing that we have to look out for that if it's not tackled, if it's not noticed, that then it can move into a mental health problem. And that's when kind of it moves into becoming an anxiety issue or a depression issue.
Right, okay.
And because everyone is feeling a little bit burnt out at the moment, everyone's on autopilot and they're not noticing. So it's starting to pay attention in a different way, maybe to your employees, noticing what's changing. Is their personalities changing? Are they more irritable? Are they tired? Are they sighing all the time? I'm just checking in with people, really asking them how they.
I think is ultimately it. Yeah. Okay. So the next question: a manager thinks one of their employees is showing signs of burnout. What can they do to support them in their job?
Okay. Well, that's a good question, Jessica, because that's something that comes up an awful lot now. I do a good bit of work with EAP with employers. They send in their employees for counselling.
Right.
And the main cause that would be coming into me is burnout. Now, the thing about burnout is that it happens really gradually. Right, and because it happens so gradually, the people tend not to notice. But by the time, until it gets too late, and by the time they get into me, employees will often be at a certain state of exhaustion, mental, physical and emotional exhaustion, that they have to take time off work. Right. And that can end up, it can often be, a month to 6 months. And that's what people say. And the employees themselves don't realise it, because people, you're on that autopilot and you keep going, and it's not, they just feel they have to keep going.
Right, okay.
So, and another way, everyone is so caught up in their own stress at the moment. It's hard to people don't have time to look out for other people, which is understandable. That's why it's so important, I think, for employers to have a policy on burnout. You know, maybe to have it in their health and safety manuals, because it is really, really, really common, and it's happened more and more frequently. And the thing
can I
is,
ask, actually,
no problem.
have you seen a big rise in that particular issue? Like, is it a noticeable difference with the onset of the pandemic?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
At first, like the first few weeks, kind of everything was quieter because people didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But now, especially in the, like I'm, like even, you know, a lot of councils are saying that they're full up, that, you know, we have, our books are full.
Oh, I know.
There's so many people looking for help, you know. And what I'd say to, just to say to all the people we have on, that Aware Ireland have a brilliant website.
Okay.
And, you know, employers and employees can access it. And as I was saying, that if you can get the burnout before people, because when they get to the burnout stage, they're feeling hopeless and helpless, and they're not coping, and that's when they have to take time out. But if you can watch people or keep an eye on people, have a kind of open policy, you know, that, okay, if you're feeling overburdened with your work, or it could be outside stresses that are affecting their work, to talk to us about it, and have a policy in place that, you know, when you're stressed, to tackle the stress.
Very good. Okay.
It could be advising someone to I highly recommend the Aware website.
Right.
And there's programs on it that, you know, anybody can log on and do a program for their mental health. And for a lot of people, that would be enough.
Okay.
That'll be enough. And then if it's not, it's getting somebody to go to their GP, maybe getting to access counselling. But we have to remember, when people hear the word mental health, mental health is our mind, it's mind, body, behaviour. If it can be tackled, the majority of the 21 in 4 that will struggle with it, it can be tackled.
Okay.
If they get help in time. So it's being aware, listening out, listen to your employees. If you're noticing anything, just, you know, approaching them, asking, you know, how are you doing? That can be enough. People just want to be heard.
Actually, and I have a question for you, and it's not one of the ones that we have on the list, but it's one I know that you can answer, is what percentage, I suppose, of your clients would be attending because of work-related stress?
I would say about 40%.
Okay, right. So it's there anyway. Before the pandemic, it's there anyway. Right, thanks for that. My next question. An employee returning to work after stress leave. Okay, so an employee is returning to work after stress leave. Their co-workers are not looking forward to the return. What can the manager do? Okay.
Well, first of all, like stress, we're all different. We've all different personalities. We've all different temperaments. One person won't stress another person, and vice versa. So I think it's important for, if that situation occurs, that the manager talks to employees and explains that, okay, this part, you know, whoever, this is a stressor for them. And to talk to the employee returning, to have, I think it's really important to have an interview with somebody before you bring them back in. Kind of document their stresses, have a plan to implement to tackle the issue, and to kind of to meet with them regularly, like, you know, check in. The plan might be that they return to work on a part-time basis and then move into a full-time basis. And if it is affecting the fellow employees, that they need to be kept in the loop as well, and just saying that we're sorting this out. I just want to know that action has been taken.
Managed.
Left out.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish I had loads more time, because the answers are really, they're full and they're really good. What advice would you give to managers or employees or employers who have not been trained to deal with staff mental health issues?
Okay. Well, it's the professionals are there to deal with the mental health issues. So I would say to the managers staff to encourage people that if they're not coping, you know, some people, all they need is a listening ear, somebody to listen to them, and, you know, just to listen, not to particularly give advice. If people want advice, they'll ask for it, right? And sometimes that's enough. But if it's not enough, it's to point people in the right direction. Like it's not up to the managers have enough to be doing. They can't sort out people's mental health problems. So just, it's that listening, supporting, and then if that's not enough, they feel people need more help, point them in the right direction to their EAP programs or to their GP, and just to keep up to date with them, to keep checking in with them. People really appreciate that.
Okay, very good. My last question for you, Carolyn, because we have to move on to Anna,
No problem.
is employees may have a fear of appearing weak if they admit something going on with their mental health.
Yeah.
Should an employer encourage them to reveal if they detect there may be an issue?
I think that you can't pressure anybody into saying, or you can't, people will, they might, it's a very private thing. Some people are very open to talking about their mental issues, other people aren't, and that has to be respected. But what you could do is, like, if it's in your health and safety policy that, you know, you have an open, if you're open to discussing people's mental health problems, and that's something, and it's that you can't discuss it, that makes a big difference. But no, I don't think you should push anybody. If somebody wants to open up, they will. I'm
just thinking of the different personality types, and it's important to remember that you can't push someone. Okay. Carolyn, thanks a million. If you wouldn't mind staying online, there may be a question for you at the end. There may not, but there may be. I know you've got a client at 11:30, so I'm conscious of that. So thanks a million.
No
and
problem.
If you wouldn't mind muting your mic and turning off your camera, that would be great. Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, Anna.
Hi.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you for waiting in the room.
No problem. Caroline has stolen all my good lines.
Oh, has she? Well, you know what? There's no harm in hearing them twice. So look, we'll launch straight into our first question. Has your organisation noticed an increase in companies struggling with keeping their workforce well? And what types of companies or sectors are most at risk?
Yeah, I think irrespective of whether companies kind of have full-blown bells and whistles well-being programs or are kind of new to this, I think everyone has struggled. Because that kind of concept of well has been reframed so many times. So kind of at the start of this, it was a very clear message. It was a public health message, keep safe. And I think everyone could get on board with that. It was, you know, keep safe, managing risk. And then it kind of started to move into, okay, let's look after well-being, because this isn't going to be hunkering down for 2 or 3 weeks. This is in it for the long term. So it's the resources, the caring needs, you know, people who are parents or elderly, cares for elderly people, all those kind of things started coming into play as well. So those real pressures started to come in. So it's just been a bit of a roller coaster, I think, for a lot of companies trying to figure this out. So those that have done well or who have kind of been able to get through this best, in a way, have been those, and I know you've got some pharma companies on the line here today, that have been able to retain some level of normality or some level of operational normality, whereby we're not trying to kind of manage everyone remotely at the moment. So you kind of get some people coming in and you get some kind of sense check of how people are. Also, those companies kind of in that pharma sector as well, or kind of high spec engineering, kind of health and safety is in their DNA. So they're kind of used to, you know, masking up and protocols and things like that. So again, it's not such a stretch from the norm. So so I think the companies, or certainly kind of across the wide base of IBEC member companies and KeepWell companies, those that have had to go fully remote, and now the mask has been lifted on remote, we can pretty much all do it. Now it's going to be, okay, let's unpeel this, and we have to go back, and you know, are people going to come back, and what's the blended options, and had they thought about their flexible working options previously? So it's kind of, we've been thrown into a lot at the same time.
New territory,
So so we're all going to be kind of unpicking this for a while, I think.
Okay, fair enough. So what are the different struggles currently facing large and smaller businesses that you have encountered?
Well, for our smaller businesses, if you think about it, they tend to be quite close-knit in a certain way. And they can be under financial pressures. So, you know, they're kind of keeping a watch on all these different kind of temporary wage subsidy schemes, you know, hoping for things coming in with this July stimulus package that we're hoping we'll hear from the government. So they've got financial pressure on them in a lot of instances, and that can be impacting then on the resources that they have, or the messaging maybe, you know, not even necessarily kind of obvious messaging that can be going throughout the business. So people kind of come with general worries. So for businesses like that, I think it's really important to keep lines of communication open with the team.
Absolutely is key,
Yeah, and for larger companies, it's kind of, you're not always going to get to stay in touch with those that maybe you need to stay in touch with.
Yeah.
So not everyone is going to recognize, back to Carolyn's thoughts, not everyone is going to recognize their burnout. It's not going to be possible to maybe do a check-in with everyone along the way, and those that probably need the support aren't always going to volunteer for the support. So it can be difficult for larger businesses as well to kind of really be able to kind of keep a check, performance manage and check in on staff.
Okay, very good. Research shows that the majority are more likely to stay longer with employees who show an interest in their health and well-being. But where does an organization start?
Well, Jessica, I'm glad you asked me that question. I think all companies should do the KeepWell mark.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. Realistically, though, where does an organization start is it has to be something that comes from the management team or the leadership team. There's no point kind of going, we should do well-being this year, and that's just let's do it and throw a whole load of money at the problem, and you've got a whole load of initiatives or things, but you don't really know what the impact is. So firstly, it has to be something that kind of fits into the DNA of the company, and the leadership team or management team are on board that kind of health and well-being is kind of where we are right now. And then secondly, I think it should kind of link into your why. So, kind of concept of knowing your why. So I think when we were talking to the team in Bank of Ireland, they were kind of going, well, what should we be doing about our workplace well-being? And financial well-being is going to have to be a critical pillar for them because it's what they're doing. So it's like supporting their staff, and then it's on message for the company brand. And if you're talking to the team in Aramark, good food, nutrition kind of is some of the messaging for internally, and it goes externally as well. So I think things that are true to the company and true to your brand are really important.
Makes
sense. But also that's kind of to the earlier point, not just doing stuff for the sake of doing things. So kind of really understanding kind of what's happening with the company, and trying to engage as much staff as possible really to get the most out of it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Understanding the why as opposed to just ticking a box and this is what companies need to do.
Yeah, and like there's loads of different things that you can rob, and I'd always say kind of do rob the good ideas from companies, but do have a sense of kind of what's right for you guys. Like if you're not all funky and tech, then don't start kind of throwing in a whole load of apps to people who are going, I don't know what to do, I don't know why. Or it could be like, it's not always just kind of mental health supports, it can be social, physical challenges as well, and that kind of feeds into people's health and well-being. So.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. Okay, so my next question: how can an organization assess or analyze what their business needs are in terms of managing mental health and well-being in the workplace?
Yeah, again, I'd say don't isolate mental health as a chapter in its own right, because our mental health is so linked to our physical health and financial well-being, and again back to that messaging from leadership. So I would kind of look at all of this quite holistically, and then you get results when you know what you're measuring. So again, the KeepWell framework, but any kind of framework or any kind of audit that you can do for yourselves to know what you're trying to move the dial on. So look at things like your absence management trends. Are people kind of, do a lot of people kind of out on a Monday, and what's that saying to you? Are they kind of maybe intrinsically not that enthusiastic about coming in? So is there something going on there? Looking for how you reintegrate people after kind of long-term absences as well. Are people staying with you? What your turnover rate is within the business? Why are people leaving the job? Are people leaving a manager? And kind of just start and kind of see there's cues probably happening all throughout your business that maybe you're not looking at it through the prism of workplace well-being. So when you kind of say, well, okay, what is the organization telling us there? And ask, I know people hate lots and lots of surveys and things, but do ask staff, what do they kind of want to get involved in, or what do they see that they would is a good workplace well-being initiative. You might think it's great to invest in an EAP program, but if people feel a little bit skeptical about
what's an EAP program,
so an EAP program is an employee assistance program.
Okay, very good.
I think Jennifer or Carolyn referenced it as well, that, you know,
Yes.
a lot of businesses kind of have that support for staff, and so they're taken up to lesser extents by some other businesses, and you might kind of, on average, it's a 2 to 3% usage rate. So again, it's
Really?
understanding. Yeah, it can be.
Oh,
People can be
God,
a little
okay.
bit skeptical of it. They're
Right,
kind of
yeah.
go, all right, it's a service offered by work, but, you know, are they really getting that information back? They
Okay.
don't necessarily believe that it's totally confidential. So,
Private, yeah. Okay, and I understand
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah. So certainly, kind of, as I said, number one, kind of look for the triggers around the business, kind of what's happening, survey staff, understand kind of what things people want to get involved in, and look for the organic kind of things that are happening. If there is kind of social clubs or running clubs or things like that that can be incorporated into a well-being plan.
Okay, very good. Right. I'm going to move on to the last question here, okay? And then we can go for a couple of questions.
Sure.
If you could give 3 critical points of advice to businesses in general, bearing in mind the pandemic and the effects, what would they be?
They'd be kind to themselves, number one. Like, this is territory, it's uncharted territory for all of us.
Yeah.
So be kind and give yourselves a break. Yes, we have a duty of care as employers, but there's all kinds of different parts playing into people's lives. So, you know, there's a responsibility, there's a place that we play in, but we're not the be all, and you know, we're not everything to everyone. So just give yourself a break, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, keep communication lines open, even if it's to say, we don't know what we're doing yet, or we don't know how this is playing out. Just keep people as engaged as possible. And that can be, you know, all staffs, or it can be cascaded down from kind of senior managers through to line managers as well. And just kind of make people feel that they're in the loop. And number three, if things are adaptable, so if, you know, you did have a running club or a lunch club or things like that, if there are things that you can make adaptable to online or virtual platforms, try it. You know, like we've done, you know, we had our virtual Pride Parade last week, and kind of sharing kind of resources there. So if there are things that can make you feel as normal or as connected back to at all, but if there's small things that can kind of you can play in, do it.
Okay, that's great. All makes real sense. Cool. Okay, so thanks for that, Anna. We have 4 minutes left in the webinar, so if anyone has any questions that they specifically like to gear towards either Carolyn or Anna, if you go into your Zoom group chat, it's down the bottom of the screen. Let me just find where it is. Down near in the middle, kind of. If you press chat, you can ask a question there. Carolyn, if you could come back on, please. I have a question. Okay, here she is. Yeah. Hi there, Carolyn.
Hiya.
Okay, so we have one question here for you.
Sure.
From all the clients Carolyn is working with, what's the biggest worry people have at the minute? Loss of jobs, the uncertainty, the virus itself, or something else?
It's the uncertainty. The not knowing what's going to happen with absolutely everything.
Okay.
They don't know what's happened with the virus, with their work, with when people have lost their jobs. There's a huge insecurity over, is there going to be a recession? Okay. So it's widespread over everything. And can I just say, Jessica, what Anna said something there about EAP counselling. As an EAP provider, just to say to everybody, it is 100% confidential. Nobody's ever identified.
Actually, that's great. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I know, Carolyn, I'm conscious you have to go in 3 minutes. How do you address that? There's a question there from Richard. How do you address that?
Address which?
So the uncertainty. Basically,
it's just it's to normalize it. Like what people are saying is that, you know, they're feeling anxious, and a lot of people, what I have discovered is a lot of people are experiencing anxiety for the first time in their life.
Okay.
And it's very uncomfortable for them. So it's to kind of normalize it and say, okay, it's okay, this is happening to you, this is happening to so many people. Uncertainty is the biggest cause of anxiety, and because people think, oh God, something happened to me, especially if they haven't experienced it before. But just by normalizing it and saying this is very normal under the current circumstances. And so there's some good articles there. accessing Aware or whatever, that will have it. And HSE.
And just to say Aware again, aware.ie, is it?
Yeah,
is
and the
site.
HSE.ie website has huge information.
Brilliant.
As well.
Okay. Now, one more question for you, Carolyn. I'm going to give it to you first. Question for Carolyn around a burnout. For a company who doesn't have this in their policies, what would you recommend? I'm just thinking, is that a question that you can answer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I would say absolutely put it in your policy. I think it's really, really important, and especially in light of everything that's going on now, because people are not aware of it.
Okay.
A majority of people, if you ask, how would you know if you're burning out, they would not be able to answer you. People come in here to me, they don't know what's going on with them, and we quickly find out they're burning out.
It's alien. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's really important.
Okay, Carolyn, thanks a million. It's been really good having you on. Really appreciate it. Lots of information there. And best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers now. Bye-bye. Okay, so the next question, and it'll be our final question as we're coming up to 11:30, and it's for Anna. Actually, we have two for you, Anna. If a small company doesn't have a HR department, how do employees convey their concerns?
It really is kind of going back to line managers or going back to their next in command. So I know that kind of in small companies, you're the CEO, the CFO, the HR, and you kind of are all things to all people. But, I'd kind of have informal kind of catch-ups where, we all do a coffee together and people can kind of talk about things in a casual kind of way. But it does kind of tend to have to go up to.
So ultimately, the employee, they go to their line manager, whoever that is. It may be the CEO, but that's the person you need to go to.
We have, I'll share with you afterwards. We have kind of a booklet which might be handy for people here. It's kind of a line manager's guide to mental health, and
that'd be brilliant. Yeah,
and just kind of helps people kind of have some of those kind of critical conversations with staff as well.
That's very good. We'll send that out to all attendees once the webinar is finished. Okay, one more question for you, Anna. Sure. You referenced integrating people after long-term absence. How do you actually induct them back? What timeframes do you recommend for the reintroduction process? And what do you cover in the reintroduction process?
So in reintroduction, I suppose it's going to be a little bit of, are there new ways of working? So they could be coming back to a very new environment, or their team structures may be quite different. So again, I think it's important to say to them, this is new for all of us. So we're all kind of finding our feet in this. Lead with kind of any kind of health advices that are happening at the moment, and to how you're coming back. And again, just make sure that they have kind of a buddy or a check-in, that you've kind of you agree that they know exactly what's going to happen. So once a week we check in and see how this is going for you. There's a possibility to adapt and change. We check in every second week, and you manage it over kind of a month, 2 month, 3 month plan.
No surprises either. Yeah,
exactly. Everyone knows what we're getting on board with. And I think that's it. Kind of clarity is key. Okay.
Well, that brings us to 11:32. Anna, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you coming on board. Just to say to everyone who's attended, thank you so much for coming on. We do have a recording of this webinar for anyone who would like to, I suppose, share it with your colleagues, etc. As Anna had mentioned, we have a booklet on line managers and how they should manage the process, and that we'll send to all attendees. I'm available for any questions afterwards. You have my email, my phone number's on my emails. Anyone can contact me. Again, thank you, everyone, and the best of luck during this time. Anna, thank you.
Bye-bye.